Welcome to another episode of Tank Talks, your personal think tank for all things startups and venture capital. I'm your host, Matt Cohen, founder and managing partner at Ripple Ventures. This week's episode is a conversation I had on Clubhouse with Shaunak Amin, co-founder and CEO of SnackMagic, to discuss how he pivoted his business during the pandemic and went from 0 to 20 million in ARR in 8 months. Shaunak describes how his previous food delivery business, Stadium, which was doing $40,000 a day in sales in February 2020, went to zero overnight when lockdowns hit New York City. We dig into what happened in those first few weeks of lockdown and how Shaunak was able to pivot and re-emerge with a new platform called SnackMagic after noticing his customers were still ordering snacks for employees working remotely. Shaunak explains the research his team did to understand their customers' demands and how they built a product that fit their specific needs. Finally, we discuss how SnackMagic was able to grow revenues to 20 million in 8 months and eventually land a Series A with Craft Ventures for 15 million. This Tank Talk is so inspiring for entrepreneurs out there whose businesses have had to reinvent themselves due to the pandemic. Now let's get into this week's episode with Shaunak Amin, co-founder and CEO of SnackMagic. Welcome, Shaunak. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Matt. Excited to be here.
So before we get started, I really want to hear about your first business when you were in college at University of Pennsylvania. Apparently, you said you weren't allowed to attend graduation and had to live in your car for 3 months while showering at UPenn's gymnasium. What was the story with that part of your life?
Yes. So that was my first business in the US. I'd done one more before I came to the US. I started the food cart business like Matt mentioned, and I put in like 2 semesters worth of tuition that my dad had sent me inside the business. So I hadn't paid my tuition for 2 semesters, last 2 semesters. The business grew quite rapidly, but I was reinvesting everything that we were making in the business back into growing. So there was a situation where I didn't want to waste money on rent. I said, I'm going to live in my car for 3 months, and I don't even need an apartment. I was going to shower at UPenn's gym. So I did that for a good 3 to 5 months, I think. And then it was graduation time. PENN would not give me my degree because I hadn't paid my fees, rightfully so. So I had to get all the money, pay the fees, and then get my degree. So that was the story there.
And what happened with your dad? Did he find out that you were actually using the money to start a business?
He found out after the fact. So I got my degree and then I told him this whole story and then we had a good time.
Okay, good. As long as he didn't punish you too bad for that. It sounds like you turned out okay.
Some of the lessons I learned there, I think I apply a lot to our business, SnackMagic and Stadium. Like one thing that I learned, especially in the first business, was like how important cash flow is. You know that, you read it in school, but you don't quite realize it till you actually experience it. So that business was profitable, but the cash flow cycle was negative, where as we were growing, we needed more cash. So I think with both Stadium and SnackMagic, our recent businesses, we've turned it the other way around, where it's negative working capital.
Well, it sounds like you got some really good life lessons out of the way early on in your career before you even started your first company, which was Stadium. So let's talk about that. What was the initial idea for Stadium, which was, as I heard, a group ordering platform for lunches in New York City? What was the business model and how did that business perform before COVID hit it?
Yes, so Stadium, we launched that in 2014. The idea was, and still is, when a group's ordering lunch, oftentimes, more often than not everybody wants the same thing. Like I might want sushi from Bondi Sushi in New York. You, Matt, if you were in New York, you might want a vegan salad from Pai Chloe. Someone else might want a salad from Sweet Green. Today, like the only way to do that is to place 5 different orders and food's going to come at all different times. So we said we're going to turn that model on its head and create a group ordering platform where groups as small as 5, 6 people to as large as a few hundred people could all order through Stadium from multiple restaurants, and it was going to come to you as one order, all packaged nicely with your name on it, so everybody could eat together. So yeah, the business we launched in 2014, it took us a good 2 years to find the product market fit, but then things started clicking, and I want to say since 2017, late 2017, 18, things were growing, I want to say at least 15, 20% month over month without any marketing or ad spend. We reached the peak in February 2020 and seemed like things were going very, very strong. We weren't stopping. And then New York shut down. And even before New York shut down, actually, we made the decision to take a pause just because so much was going on and just for the sake of safety. And yeah, that's when we started ideating what else can we do, and that's how SnackMagic was born.
Wow. So in February 2020, you were doing about 40,000 a day, as I hear, and a plan to get to 150,000 a day in volume by October 2020. And then COVID hits you right in the face, lockdowns begin, and your business goes to zero overnight. So what was that like, and how did the team react?
So I think we had 2 hubs in Manhattan, and we were about to sign the lease for our 3rd location in Manhattan. Last 12 months, everybody had worked super hard. We were all very confident, and then this happens. I think initially we weren't sure how long this was going to be, right? So I think we felt it'll be a good week, 2 weeks. We'll get some breath, catch up on things we weren't able to do. But very quickly, week 1, we realized, it's going to be longer. I think we started ideating, there are so many things. So even though we were all at home, I think we decided to be closed on Friday. And the Monday after that, we were all talking about how should we prioritize some of the things that are in our pipeline, have been in the pipeline for such a long time. So we were still working normally, even though we were not operating and delivering food. But then by end of week 1 and week 2, we all had a sense this could be longer. And we actually, the first 2 weeks, we were working on initiatives that we're going to start a 3 p.m. initiative where offices that were ordering lunch from us could now order like a break time snack at 3 p.m. We were going to launch breakfast. So those were some of the initiatives we started working on the first week and the second week. But then second week, we realized we can do all this and be ready for when Stadium reopens. But this might be much longer than, a few weeks. And that's when we said, okay, fine. What else can we do?
Well, yeah, it's so funny. You hear about this all the time where people have so many ideas written on Post-it notes on a board, but they just don't have time to focus on them because they're dealing with fires every single day on their main core business. And they just keep putting it off month after month, quarter after quarter, until a pandemic knocks you in the face and puts your business to zero overnight. Then you start really pulling those Post-it notes off the board. And you're like, well, let's try this and let's try this. And that's what it sounds like you guys were doing. You were pulling forward some of the ideas you had and said, well, we have nothing to lose. Let's try a bunch of different things and see what sticks. Is that sort of how you guys were framing it in that first week or two?
No, I think the first week or two, our assumption then was we are going to restart in maybe a month. So what can we do in a month? So when we start Stadium again, we are not only a lunch business. Stadium was just lunch at that time. We said we can start with breakfast and a 3 p.m. offering. So very conscious choice around the decision that we are going to open back in maybe a month, maybe 2 months, right? So we went all in to those initiatives. And then we said, by week 2, we were all thinking this could be longer. And even if we build all this breakfast offering and a 3 p.m. offering, we might not be able to launch all that until New York is back. So that's when we said, okay, fine, what else can we do? And what happened was we'd actually back in 2019. So Stadium was a menu of dishes from all different restaurants. But what we did was at some point early 2019, we introduced snacks and beverages in the Stadium menu. And what we saw very quickly was that side of the business started growing incredibly fast. Like 80% of people who would order lunch would throw in a snack or a beverage. So we knew there was something there always. And at that time in 2019, we had discussed what if we could actually come up with something where we could send boxes to people's homes. And our whole MO as a company is one person being able to treat many, many people at scale and the recipients being able to pick their own, right? When it was Stadium, that was what we did with lunch. And we said, can we apply that same use case to something else? And because the snack and beverage side of the business was growing so much, so fast, we said, what if we create a concept where it's a build your own snack box concept, and organizer in less than 2 minutes can send a link out to 2,000 people if they want, and each person will pick their own snacks. Someone who's vegan can get vegan snacks, someone who's gluten-free can get that, someone who eats everything can pick and choose. So that's how, we ideated it and thought it sounded like a reasonable idea, but ideas just mean so much. Then we had to go out and validate this idea.
So it wasn't a full pivot. You were thinking about like this as a short-term solution before, or like an add-on to what you were going to eventually return back to, which was your core business at Stadium. But before moving on, how big was your team pre-COVID and how small did it get after revenues went to zero? And secondly, how much runway did you have left before running out of business when everything was at a standstill?
So we were at 16 full-time people at Stadium and maybe another 20 part-time people. The team did not change that much, because again, we were thinking this is temporary. We weren't like everybody else looking to, act on anything at that point in time, because we knew we were going to use everybody to do other things, build other product, all that. We had at that time, if I remember correctly, 7 months of runway, assuming zero revenue and all costs without reducing any headcount.
Gotcha. Okay. So 7 months, you thought this was only going to last maybe a month or two. So we were going to be back in business within maybe 3 months, but ends up obviously taking a little bit longer. So after noticing your existing Stadium customers were purchasing snacks like iced coffee, chips, and other snacks, you eventually realized this could be a new business. But how did you eventually make the decision to put everything in that basket, no pun intended, to go forward with this business?
So we had 2 or 3 high-level criteria. One thing we said, coming out of this, we wanted to come out with 2 businesses. We did not want to spend time and energy creating something just for this period. So we were very clear that we were not going to do things that other people were doing around grocery delivery and some of those things that, in our viewpoint, were very fleeting. We said we're going to use this time to invest in the long term. So that was one criteria we had. And the other criteria we had was we should have a differentiated angle and we should play to our strengths, right? So those were the 3 things that we started out thinking, And then we said, scalable global gifting is one. Scalable gifting is one of our strengths. Recipients being able to pick their own is our second thing. So we're going to create this concept around those 2 things. And then what we did was we had this vague idea, but before investing any time into building the product or anything else, we said, let's fill up our calendars, talk to as many brands as we can on one side and talk to as many customers as we can on the other side. So I remember me and my colleagues, we were having even though we were not operating, we had meetings back to back talking to brands on what is happening. Restaurants, we were not talking to just because our restaurants were closed. They didn't want to talk to us. And there wasn't that much to do there. So when we spoke to brands, there were few things that came out straight away. One thing was, because of the pandemic, many retailers, which would typically carry their products, were putting their products on the side or on pause, just because everybody was focused on essentials. So all these brands, all these cool brands that we were fans of, that stand for awesome ingredients, and they're still not that mainstream. They were all getting kicked out from Whole Foods and Amazon and all that, and they had all this stock sitting around, and there was no way they could reach their audience. So we started hearing that again and again and again. So we knew on the supply side of things, there was definitely an opportunity there. And then on the customer side, we learned that that first week, everybody was stressed. They were trying to connect with everybody, just learning how to work remotely. And then second week, they were trying to find things to connect better with their team. And they said, we've done all these happy hours and those things on Zoom, but I wish we could send something physical. And collecting addresses is super hard, just because everybody's traveling these days. So I think we were getting some validation points there also.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I love that for a second. Entrepreneurs out there, who are listening, there's a lot of people who think they have problem solution fit, but they don't have enough data to back it up before they try and build it. And it sounds like you really focused in on getting enough customer feedback, having, it sounds like hundreds of conversations with the CPG providers, as well as your end customers who were the enterprise and startup customers who wanted access to this type of service before you even doubled down on it. And that applies to any startup out there. We say, if you're a B2C startup, talk to 500 customers. If you're mid-market, talk to 100. If you're enterprise, talk to 50. Do you remember how many conversations you had in those time period when things were quiet?
I think it was 2 weeks, I want to say, where we had back-to-back meetings from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 30-minute meetings. Yeah, and we did not want to spend more than 2 weeks because we wanted to come back and build it and launch it, right, once we got validation. So I think it was a very conscious choice. And this is how we even do that today. Sometimes when we don't understand something, we'll just set up many, many meetings in a very short period of time. We'll just talk to everybody and then come back and connect the dots. And then we can make high conviction decisions. I think it's a very conscious thing that we do from time to time when we don't know how to solve something or we are not 100% sure. And we'll go in with a starting point. We'll go in with a hypothesis saying, okay, this is the model. It makes sense in theory, in concept. Now, let's go talk to many, many people and let's see what questions they're asking, what they relate to, what they don't relate to. And then you come back and then you have a full picture. So that was the approach we took.
That's amazing. It really validated your thesis, but you backed it up with data on both the supply side and the demand side. And so then you end up pivoting the business with zero revenue and you launch your first SnackMagic box, as I understand, in April of 2020. And then by May, you decide to open a 7,500 square foot warehouse in Long Island. So what were those first few months like after the pivot?
Yeah, so I'd say like second week of April was when we said, okay, fine, this is the idea we are going after. We started like creating designs and mock-ups, started sharing with as many people as we could. We are not believers in, keeping things secret. We want to actually show it to as many people so we get validation feedback. We did that, and we did the first order on the 27th of April from one of our hubs that was a Stadium hub we used for Stadium. It is in Flatiron in Manhattan. We did that. We said we'll get the first order and then we'll figure everything else out. And immediately when we launched the website, we had a few people, I don't know what they were doing hanging around on the website because we didn't have a business back then. But I think even before I realized it, there were 2 or 3 orders that had come in. And I believe Spotify was one of our first customers. They placed the order and now we said, okay, fine, let's figure out how are we going to box it, package it, this and that. We had the snacks in store, but we went to Staples, got a few boxes. The team iterated, saw how it looked, sent photos to each other. And that was the first box delivered. And then very quickly by May end, we knew we were getting a lot of product from the brands and we were getting a lot of interest. Very soon, we were going to ooze out of the space. So we needed to find a bigger warehouse. The team, 2 members on the team went all out. I want to say we took 30 days from actually scouting for a location to getting the lease and negotiating a lease and signing and then moving to our new warehouse in Long Island City. So this was all happening in parallel. On one end, we were focused on growth. On the product side, we were trying to polish up our product. On the operations side, we were trying to find new space. On the CPG side, we were trying to onboard more brands. It was all happening. I think it was a team effort, a fully divide and conquer effort where everybody just led their area and made it happen.
Wow, it's amazing. There were so many things moving at once and somehow you were able to still keep your head on a swivel. How did you guys make sure it didn't feel or look like every other snack box out there or subscription service out there to begin with?
So first thing is we don't like subscriptions. So we said, whatever we do, we are not going to start out as a subscription box service. And if you look at both businesses, right, if you look at SnackMagic and Stadium, these are both businesses in what someone on the outside would think very crowded markets. But our whole MO is we want to come at it at a very different angle. So our whole thing was, there are snack boxes out there. And the way the market is, even today, outside of SnackMagic is the organizer or the gift giver chooses a box and sends that same box to everybody. And when you talk to those customers, which we did, it's a hit or a miss because not everybody's different. Their tastes are different. Their dietary restrictions are different. The chances that everybody's going to like they're going to like all the items in the snack box is close to 0, no matter how good of an offering or curation that box has. So we said we are going to turn the model on its head and everybody chooses their own snacks. It's as simple as that. It makes the process more fun, more engaging. You've decided what you want. Now you're going to look forward to it even more. There's a much higher chance you're going to like everything. And it's become this whole discovery process where today, if you look at the menu, we have 800 unique items and anybody gets a link, they come on it and choose. So I think that was the first thing that we said, the pick your own concept or build your own concept is what is going to truly differentiate us. And then over time, we started doing other things around you can brand the box and you can add swag inside the box. And some of those things, you don't need addresses. And the way we build the product is also ultra simple. An organizer can set it up, send a link out via Slack or whatever. Everybody clicks on it. So I think the whole experience from a product standpoint and the actual box standpoint is also quite different.
It must be so confusing, though, to have all those SKUs. It's like when you go into a restaurant, they have 800 items on the menu. You're like, I don't even want anything. I can't choose anything. Just give me 4 things and I'll pick from one of them. So how did you guys manage all of those different SKUs, in a timely and costly manner? And also, how did you manage the logistics part to keep your costs so low?
Yeah, so there are two questions there, Matt, right? One is when a recipient lands on the menu and they have to pick from 800 items, how do they not get lost, right? That's question one. And then on the operations side, how are we managing the complexity behind all these SKUs and picking and packing because each box is different, right? So the first question, I think on the recipient side, when they land on the menu, you'll see we put forth like our collections, like things are grouped into different subcategories and categories, and you can filter the menu based on dietary restriction and all that. And I think what we've heard from customers, it's super exciting and they enjoy, like they discover all this product that they don't have. And if someone doesn't want to go through the process of picking their own, they can also get a standard snack box. Like we'll fill your cart up with a standard offering and send it to you. The more interesting side is the logistics side, right? Imagine you have a warehouse of 800 unique SKUs. Each SKU, you have thousands of items stocked in your warehouse, and then each box is different, right? Like your box, Matt, is going to be different from my box, is going to be different from someone else's box. So we can't pre-pack these boxes, and we are believers in just-in-time inventory, just-in-time logistics. So I think that's one of the things that is an edge of ours, because of the stadium business, like we learned so much delivering hot food and cold food, which has to be delivered at a certain time. We've created an internal app that we use to pick, pack, sort, receive, and box orders. The algorithm behind that and the way we incentivize everybody, all the pickers and packers, basically gets us to a system where everything is very, very efficient. We're spending like $2 tops on picking, packing, boxing any one box. That's our metric. And I mean, the unit economics are very strong. And overall, at the company level, we are profitable, which is testament to the fact how efficiently we run our warehouse, despite like having so many SKUs.
That's incredible. I don't think there's many snack companies out there that are building their own picking, packing, and sorting software out there. From what I understand, even the 3PL players out there are giving their software away for free just so that they can get the shipping volume through their platform. So that's really interesting. Okay, so there's one other question I wanted to ask, which is on the CPG side. So, there's a ton of competition out there on the CPG space. You've spoken to a lot of the players out there. How do you decide which brands to work with? And do the brands sell you their products at a discounted price to get access to your community and clients for advertising benefits? Because I assume that's pretty beneficial to them as well.
That is, but that's not the main thing. I'd say like we looked at other snack box companies and that's how they position their service. We want to position SnackMagic first and foremost as we are going to be your biggest buyer. So we are going to buy wholesale. And like for many of our brands today, we are actually, in fact, their biggest buyer. So the way we shortlist the brands, we are getting roughly 10 to 15 applications every day from brands who want to be on the SnackMagic platform. They fill out an application, like oftentimes I'd say 95% of the time it's inbound through referrals, like our current brands are referring other brands they know to SnackMagic. They fill out an application. In the application, we ask them what their story is, why they started, like what do their products stand for. And then our team, our CPG team, which is fantastic, I think they go through the process of testing, sampling. We do ask for an initial like test pre-fill where they donate a few hundred SKUs that we make live on the menu. We test that out and then we start buying wholesale. So they have to, like any brand, we are very open to experimentation and testing as long as the fundamentals are there. So we do that, we'd get some product, we'd make it live, and immediately within a week, we'd know like how popular something is and if it has staying potential or not. And then we start buying wholesale. So that's what like the life cycle is.
No, that's brilliant. So not only are you getting like the sampling done for them, but I'm assuming that they're also getting some data and analytics out of the platform as well on what they're being consumed for?
Yes. So I think that's actually very important. When you look at the CPG ecosystem, like data is very, very opaque. And many brands don't get access to who their customers are, how much they're buying, where they're buying. So we give all brands access to our portal where they can see in real time like how much is selling on SnackMagic of their product. They can see where they're ranking in their peer group. People who are buying their product, what else are they buying? Where is their product going? So all these things, all these stats, and our goal is to really empower all these brands with data so they can make better decisions, which in turn will help us out also.
I'm curious if, because there's no price associated with it from the consumer's point of view, are they being a little bit more liberal with their consumption patterns that may not be true if they were having to buy some of these products directly? Have you guys thought about how to tackle that?
Yes, so I think that actually is a big advantage of ours. Like people use SnackMagic to discover new things, what they like, they come back and order in bulk. So we have that full loop closed out where because it's a gift from your employer or an event organizer for an event that you're attending, you'll get some credit. You'll use that to try all these things that you otherwise would not try. And we are the only company where you can buy singles of anything, right, online. Like if you were in a Whole Foods, you could throw in a bag of chips or a bar. But online, you have to buy a case of something. But when you do a build your own snack box, you can create all these one-offs. But people, because it's someone else's budget, they are definitely more inclined to try new things and even expensive things. So it's one like counterintuitive thing is sometimes when something's more expensive, it sells more than something that's less expensive because it's other people's money. So if you want to sell something out, we'll sometimes raise the price.
Wow, very interesting. We have a question here from Adam. Adam, welcome up on stage. What's your question here?
What did you find was your best sales channel to start with?
So Adam, up until very recently, we haven't spent that much money on paid advertising. If you look at the product, it has virality built into the product, right? Because I, as the gift giver, I'm going to treat my team, which might be 100 people. They get an invite via email. Now, many of them will turn around and send their own treats to family or friends or their teams. So I think it's been product-led growth, like bottoms up. I think that's one reason why we were able to scale so quickly.
Okay, awesome. And then what would you say has been the biggest headache when trying to scale a production?
I think the headache keeps changing, right? It's like the bottleneck keeps changing in a system where it's sometimes we are getting so much product, we don't have space to store the product. Then we fix that problem, it'll shift to something else. I think the most recent one I'd say is, because we are growing so quickly and we are seeing so much interest, I think space is a big constraint. And we are close to signing the lease for our next warehouse. And we'll do that. And then I'm sure a new headache will come up, which we are ready for.
That's great. Thanks for the questions, Adam. I would love to hear more about this pay it forward or treat it forward, as you guys call it, which is a feature you guys have developed to help build a community and network effect in the business. Can you tell us a bit about that?
So I think, our whole thing was like initially when we first launched SnackMagic, like we are believers in product-led growth. So we said we want to like create some virality in the product. And the way it works is, anybody can treat anybody, right? You don't need a corporate account. You don't need anything. You can just go to snackmagic.com, say who you're treating, just enter their email. Each person who gets the email, they're going to get a link, which they can click on and redeem their snack box. Now, when they redeem on the confirmation page, we prompt them, they can send their own treat. So this chain keeps going on and on and on. And that's just how we grow. So I think that's what we call treat it forward. A good percent, and we don't disclose the exact number, but a good percent of people who are receivers end up becoming organizers, either treating their own family, friends, or using us for their own event. So that's, I think, how the chain starts and it keeps going. So as long as we do a good job with the snack selection, everybody's excited, all that, I think the rate of growth keeps accelerating because of this effect.
Oh, wow. That's cool. And what do you use to track customers' experience with the product to improve those features rapidly?
Initially, we did not have much. So we relied very much on phone calls and emails, and we'd set up meetings. And then we'd look at repeat orders, right? How frequently are people coming back to treat other people or the same people again? Now, I think we have a much more robust system where each recipient can actually share messages to the organizer. So the organizer tells us, how successful the whole gifting experience was. Now, once you receive the box, you get to rate your box. And we are getting like ratings like all day long, which we use, to measure our core strength. Those fundamentals that we very much care about around repeat usage and just engagement and all those things.
Can you tell us what the top rated snack is?
The menu keeps changing. So that top rated snack keeps changing. And I think it's also seasonal. But I tell you, like our average rating across the board is 4.58 out of 5. Because we also use this to constantly weed out the underperformers and get to a stronger menu. So we are constantly weeding out the bottom 15% and then double downing on the stuff that's working and getting rated highly.
The data you must be collecting on what type of trends people are seeing in the space is so valuable to CPG players on how to innovate their next product line, which they're constantly trying to do. I feel like Whole Foods or Amazon would love to have those insights as well on what they should be carrying in their stores, right?
I think that's the hidden gem of our business, to be completely honest. We are collecting so much rich data, and you enrich that with other data on the outside. You could make like such insightful decisions around what kind of products to launch or what brands to buy. And then also, like, I think our whole thing is that we'll give you the data that points you to some of those things, but then we also give you a platform to quickly launch, experiment, get feedback, iterate, and then relaunch, right? Because you can do the whole 9 yards with SnackMagic. With the data, we can give you a good starting point. Now, you create a product, package it, test it out. We'll tell you what the feedback is. There are always, no matter what data we give you or anybody gives you, there's going to be some points that you can improve on. Do that, relaunch it, and now the feedback is solid. Now you go spread out, wherever you want. So I think that's our goal.
That is fantastic. The flywheel you've developed is quite incredible. You just announced your Series A led by Kraft Ventures with David Sachs and Brian Rosenblatt with a $15 million investment. Tell us about how that came to be and why you decided to work with Kraft.
Yes, and Jeff Fleur. So we as a company hadn't done that much institutional fundraising up until this fundraise. We said second week of January, it's a good time. I think the business was profitable, so it wasn't as much about taking in capital. It was more about just accelerating our learning so we could scale up quickly. And then I think our criteria was we wanted to work with people who we could learn quickly from, who had operated businesses, who were founders, and Kraft, I think, fantastic team, Brian, Jeff, David. I used to listen to their stuff a lot, read their stuff a lot, so I knew them from my Stadium days. And even though we spoke to many firms, we always knew we wanted Kraft, mainly because of those reasons. We could learn a lot from them. They're founders first and foremost. Since our first meeting up until today, like every single conversation's been fantastic and couldn't have asked for better partners.
No, that's amazing. There's so many different things I think you are probably going through in your head on where you think SnackMagic can go. But where do you see it going in the next 3 to 5 years?
When you think about shoes, you think of Zappos, right? When you think of pet food, you think of Chewy. I think when you think about snacks and beverages, what do you think of? I don't think there's a clear winner there. So that's one angle. We want to be like for snacks and beverages, all the way starting from discovery to wholesale. We want to own that space. So getting deep inside of CPG is one thing that we're very clear about. And then also, like, our strength as a business is scalable global gifting, right? We've applied this model to Stadium, which is pick your own lunch. We've now validated it with SnackMagic, which is build your own snack box. We're going to take the same model, apply it to different verticals. The next one that's coming on June 1st, it's pick your own swag. Then it's pick your own wine. That'll come second half of this year. So I think those are the ways we are thinking about it, like going deep inside of CPG and then also going broad with the gifting.
So it could really lend itself to anything. I mean, you could be shipping AirPods or any type of like consumer packaged good. Basically, it doesn't have to be snacks or consumable things. It could be literally anything that people want to gift or engage or give to their employees or colleagues is basically what SnackMagic can do.
Exactly. In fact, you mentioned AirPods. We launched an office offering on the menu. So now we have snacks, beverages, pantry, and office. And under the office section, you find some of these electronics and some of the things you would typically want for your home office or even your physical office. So that's also doing very, very well based on just 2 weeks of data. So yes, so that will also be an egg.
Wow, incredible. And what's your team size at now?
35 people full-time, and then about 100 people part-time.
And I assume you're hiring for more roles now that you've raised the Series A?
Yeah, culture is super important to us. So we are going about it methodically. But the next 6 months, the team will probably double.
Incredible. From 0 to 20 million in ARR in 8 months, having to restart the business, an incredible story. Before we wrap things up, we always like to ask our guests for their book recommendations. And you've got a few here that the audience should take a read on. Yeah.
So I think my number one book is The Goal, A Process of Ongoing Improvement. It's a fantastic book. I've read it probably 11 times now, and I plan to read it again soon. It just talks about processes and how to optimize processes and bottlenecks, how to avoid spot bottlenecks and then avoid bottlenecks. So that's more on the operations logistics side, but you can apply the lessons learned in this book to anything in life. My second recommendation is Influence, Psychology of Persuasion. It's fantastic. Innovator's Dilemma is my third recommendation. Clayton Christensen wrote that book. And then Blue Ocean Strategy, where you could go into crowded markets, but still have a very different and unique angle of attack and create a profitable business around it. So yeah, Blue Ocean Strategy was my fourth recommendation.
Those are 4 amazing books. Thank you so much for sharing those with us and our audience. Thank you so much for also digging into how to pivot and go from 0 to 20 million in ARR in 8 months with Shaunak Amin, the co-founder and CEO of SnackMagic. Thanks for joining us today, Shaunak.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks for listening. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And make sure to give me a follow on Twitter or Clubhouse if you want to be in the audience and ask a question on our next Tank Talk. Till next time.